right off the bat, okay, let me know if my screen freezes or anything. Correct.
Yep, sure.
Okay.
Notice.
Right. Okay. Right off the bat, before getting into what product design is and the importance of it, let's discuss about three important incidents that shaped product and industrial design as we know it. So we start off with 1979, and with a button design that almost results into a catastrophe. I'm talking about the 3 Mile Island in accident. So 1979 saw one of the worst nuclear meltdown in US history at the 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania, US. It was rated 5 on a 7-point international nuclear event scale and set back US nuclear endeavor for almost 40 years because people thought, okay, okay, this is something that is really dangerous. Even though, to be honest, right now we all know nuclear energy is one of the most cleanest source, right? But however, this particular accident at the 3 Mile Island set back the nuclear initiative for almost 4 decades. This following image actually shows a control room, right? And the wealth of buttons and how confusing it is, and all the controls, all the buttons to maintain and basically operate an important section like a nuclear power plant. And technically, after the catastrophe has happened, after several confusions and after several lot of reports, there were, like, to be honest, 27 different committee reports on this particular thing. We understood the main problem was a design defect, right? There were a lot of different buttons and no one knew what they did. There were 11 different meaning for blink red blinking and 12 different meaning for the green blink. So you can understand it was a complete user design catastrophe, right? Let's move on to the one, 2017, and it's about a bracelet that flips the 911 paradigm. It's a thing called the Ripple. It's a gaudy looking bracelet, but it also acts as a 911 button. This was the thing. So in 2015, Bo Gillespie collabed with Paul Designs from Montreal, Canada, to create an ad hoc on-demand network of guardians at the press of a button. The idea was to create a discrete emergency button that you can wear as a bracelet or maybe any kind of accessory, right? To get rescued from uncomfortable and potentially dangerous situations. So this was the second one. Let's move on to the third one. 1925. I have named it Carpet Diem. So Dreyfus saves the theater. It's about the RKO theater and how Henry Dreyfus, one of our most prominent industrial designer, and actually the father of industrial design in America and the world, saved RKO theater from bankruptcy. So in 1925, Henry Dreyfus, working for RKO was a theater company in America, was tasked with reviving the small town theaters that the company has built all across the country, in tier 2 and tier 3 cities actually. And this image here is of RKO Orpheum. It's a local theater and which supposed to deliver the Broadway experience in Davenport, Iowa, which is basically a very small town, at least at that time. But the problem was, even though it had all the amenities of a Broadway theater in New York, there were just no visitors. The business was completely failing, right? So what Henry Dreyfus did is, Henry Dreyfus completely studied the audience and decided to rip up the plush red carpet and the Art Deco style, Art Deco structure and architecture, and replace it with simple rubber mats and simple design. This simple design change actually quadrupled the audience and saved the RKO theater and the RKO company from bankruptcy. Now, I want to add one more thing here that's not written. This is actually one of the first instance of user research. Okay, it started off with industrial research, but it is technically part of user research as well. The thing is, back then Davenport, Iowa was a small town. It was a hamlet, more to be honest, and most of the audiences, users, to be honest, here were farmers who had who just want to see a vaudeville show or a new cinema, and coming back from a long day at field, right? So they have this mudded shoes and really dirty clothes, right? So they didn't want to make the carpet dirty, and at least don't want to be part of that that second class citizens who can make a classy theater look dirty. So drivers realize that they don't fit in, and that's why we need to change the structure so the users feel included as well. Okay. Now all of these incidents, right, we need to, this basically follows into the same paradigm of how do we even identify a problem and define it properly and finally develop a solution that actually works for the users and for the businesses as well, as we'll see. Now enter product design. And
Sorry, Ronak, we're unable to hear you. Sorry. Can you just unmute yourself? I think the other account.
am I
Yeah. Yes.
am I
Sorry.
audible?
Yes. Thank you.
So should I start back from this?
Yep.
Yeah. And no points for guessing what the solution was. Obviously it was product design. Now product design, right now, obviously, we when we say product design we mean digital product design, but it's not necessarily just about the digital product. Even before digital product, whatever was designed, like even if it's a piece of soap, right, or it's a television set, everything is technically part of industrial design and part of product design. Those were offline products, and now as digital product designers we are just taking it forward in the digital era and maybe designing for the screens and smartwatches and mobile applications and websites, right? But the idea is the same. Okay. So let's break down product design into two main parts, product and design. So product is something that solves problems and create values, right? And design is something that finds the creative solution and the way to get there, get to the solution, right? To give you an example, everything that we have seen, everything that we have right now is has been designed by someone, and there are different aspects of product design. So product design is often mentioned as an all-encompassing overarching thing. It includes visuals, it includes heuristics, it includes usability, everything. So generally what I do when I explain product design to someone, it's generally there is a three pillar process, right? There is UI, there is UX, and then there is product. Even though product is mentioned as a third pillar, as a different exclusive pillar, it's not technically mutually exclusive. A lot of times all these different pillars, they overlap and they create a particular sustainable structure. We'll see as we move on. So, however, if you want to differentiate between UI, UX, and product design, UI is something that deals mostly with visual design, interaction, type design like typography, fonts, and all, illustrations, videos, etc. Right? That is something that is more visual that you can see, feel, and touch. UX is something what goes behind, like the engineering part, not the technical engineering, the social engineering part of it, like creating personas, creating user journeys, creating flows, creating information architecture, which is basically the logic of the whole thing, defining the usability of the whole product, and eventually testing it, right, with real people and in real scenarios. However, if we really need to differentiate product, even though product is not technically always differentiable from UIX or maybe technically from UX to be particular. However, product focuses more on business adoption, growth, conversion of business, advocacy of a particular brand, and retention of users. These are some of the things that the products focus more on. So, what does a product designer do, right? Um, So technically, a product designers understand the market scenario and help define the problem statement. And they optimize the life cycle of a product. They define, record, and measure success metrics like KPIs and OKRs. Create and monitor design system and coordinate the design teams. Now, when I say design team, it is a loosely used term. A design team can consist of like engineers, UX researchers, UX writers, everything. When you are a senior product designer, or a product manager, as you move on, product design manager to be more specific. What you need to do is basically you need to coordinate with all these different sections and create a structure where ultimately the particular thing that you're supposed to deliver is delivered efficiently. So basically, while user experience design like UX design asks how to make the user journey more frictionless and the product more user friendly, product designers focuses more on the market fit and business goal alignments. Here is a basic Venn diagram which shows an overview of how product design works. So you have the computer science section, right, which basically is the engineering part of it. You have the visual design, which is basically UI, psychology, which technically is a part of UX, but it is a thing on itself, and the business strategy, which is part of the product itself, right? Like the product management team. And when everything overlaps, the sweet spot is product design. So many people ask me, why do you why did you switch to product design? Because I started off as a UX designer. Before that, I was a visual designer. And UX design was, I mean, it was good when I started doing UX design. It was really interesting because I was doing something, because I was creating actual value, right? I was doing all the personas, I was creating user journeys, I was creating information architecture for a particular product, but something fell off. The main problem with that was there is a little bit of difference between UX and product, as we have just discussed. Technically, when you are a mid-level UX designer, even a senior UX designer, um, not every company gives you the liberty to understand the business initiative and the business goal, for the for the ultimate expert that you have to be. So that is the main reason I wanted to switch to product design, and I did. So product design has a little measurable effect. It is more than just being creative. Now you might ask, I have seen all this Instagram posts, YouTube posts. There are thousands and thousands of Medium articles, and every time a junior designer who wants to get into product and UX or UX design, they always ask themselves, like, is product design or UX design oversaturated? Is the golden era of UX and product gone? um, Technically, the answer is a little more nuanced. There is no yes or no answer to this. I will start off with a quote from Don Norman, who is basically the father of UX design. Um, he says, I invented the term because I thought human interface and usability were too narrow. I wanted to cover all aspects of person's experience with the system, including industrial design, graphics, the interface, the physical interaction, and the manual. Since then, the term has spread widely, so much so that it is starting to lose its meaning, right? Because UX and product now is they have basically taken the throne, and it's termed as this over orchestrating experiences across different touch points. So this is more of a postmodernist explanation of what product and UX design is. But to be technically honest, um, it might not be very, it might not, it doesn't need to be as difficult, as complicated, like as an overarching overview of every brand touch points. You don't have to do that. You just need to understand like the business touch points, you understand the business goals, and they need to solve for that. So as a design hiring manager, I have seen um, yeah, product designers, UX designers as well. So in my career, I have seen three type of designers. So submit their portfolios and CVs. One of them is visual designers, who are basically graphic designers or UI designers who want to get into product design for different reasons, obviously. And number two is wireframe obsessed designers, who have, they have this set wireframes that they have made, and they try to replicate and basically populate it with some visual design that they have found online. And then the third one is the next big idea. So even when I get these portfolios, there is no presentation, there is no structure, there is not a proper guideline or a roadmap to move forward. It's basically this big idea, and they will just say, okay, okay, I have this big idea and this is how I want to take it forward, right? But technically, just having big ideas is not going to solve for a particular problem, right? and obviously not going to get you hired in a good design or a product based company. To give you an example, so I got this portfolio a couple of days back. There was this particular case study about solving the problem of parking through a particular app, right? Now the issue with that is, now I asked him, like, what was your design philosophy behind it, like why did you do it, right? And how do you actually want to solve it? uh, Technically there was no answer for that. Though he thought everything can be solved by this particular user interface that I have made, that I've designed. But the problem with that is there are a lot more logistical problems and logistical issues you need to deal with before going into the design itself, right? So when you are creating anything like a web app or an application or a website or whatever it is, for things as problematic as a parking, right, as parking, even if at least for the urban cities, right, it is not going to work. You need to create structural changes. You need to create a parking lot that actually helps you monitor all the cars. You need to install the the cameras or the special motion sensors to actually get to that point where you can say, okay, at least I can give it a shot, or this particular logistical problem where I can say, okay, this particular design interface is a part of the solution, not the whole solution itself, right? So whenever you have these big ideas, and if you think, okay, because a lot of people who, whenever they're, you know they try to find new and bigger ideas, better ideas, to be honest, to solve for. But the problem with that is, not everything is solvable through design, right? Not everything needs to be an app. When you say that you are creating this particular structure, this particular case study, you need to figure out what are the other things. What is the engineering aspect of it? What is the logistical aspect of it? How can we roll it? So basically, the idea is to create a sustainable structure, not just the big idea, right? And as I've just mentioned, there generally is a huge gap between the perceived importance and the real importance as determined by the business need, right? So you might think, okay, I have been a UI designer or a UIX designer for a company for, say, you know, 1 or 2 years. Now I just want to move on to senior product design, and basically see what's out there. But you don't determine your value technically. You do, obviously, but you need to create and understand the skills that goes into product design, rather than just the UI aspect, or rather than just making personas or making user charts and user flows and information architecture. You need to understand the business needs. So focus more on the business as well, and not just the users. So to give you an example, we have seen, yeah, like if you just open Medium or open YouTube or open Instagram, wherever there are like thousands and thousands of these articles, videos, and reels just about this UX and product, this particular technique, this new thing. But have you seen? You will rarely see articles or videos on the business of it, right? But the goal is to create a sustainable product that balances both user and business needs. Here is a Venn diagram, which basically shows the sweet spot of UX or product is technology, user needs, and business goal. So when everything comes together, that sweet spot, then where we can say, okay, we can create a sustainable, at least attempt to create a sustainable product, or create a product design structure or a system. Let's move on to a case study. So this is something that we did a couple of years back, actually. So the idea was to battle procrastination with social accountability, right? So we were going. So at that, it was during the height of the pandemic as well. So we are going through a loneliness pandemic as well, and though the solution for this can be multifold, we wanted to focus and prioritize on procrastination and demotivation, which in turn can be the root cause of many other issues to follow. And our solution to that was to create a Pomodoro based structure with a jam session, and where you can see your growth part, like how much, like it was basically a productivity timer with a little bit of social accountability. But But the thing is, this particular thing didn't work at all, right? We completely failed. This particular MVP that when we launched, it completely failed. The main reason for that, well, there are multiple of reasons, but I'll just go through one or two. The main reason was, there are already thousands and thousands of this Pomodoro solution timers solutions, right? Apps, web apps, Google Chrome extensions, whatever. But the issue is, none of them actually work, right? They have a simple structure. They maybe they work for some people, but for most, this particular Pomodoro timers or any kind of productivity timers, they don't work. You might, download a new app, use it for a while, and then just go and delete it, right, or uninstall it. So we understood that someone who has a problem with procrastination will also procrastinate joining the sessions, right? So we wanted to do something that is completely different. And and then we went to the solution of creating a complete information architecture around a community based solution, obviously with social accountability. I will just, before I move on to the next slide, I will just share some of the things that we have gone through. So this is the MVP planning for creating that community structure for procrastination. This is a long thing. It will take a lot of time to explain. I'll just skim through it. So this was the first MVP that we built, right? It was a Pomodoro-based social timer. It was community connected. There were a lot of feature, right? The three best features was timer, growth checker, and community and jam. And we had a gamified growth experience with accountability partner. We had community section where you can join a jam, but there were different problems as I have discussed, right? Then we realized, okay, we need to go back to the drawing board and actually figure out what the problems are, right? Why do a particular person procrastinate, right? So I went back to the root cause and understood through different analysis and surveys. It was like self-doubt, low self-esteem, anxiety, insecurity, lack of responsibility. So we basically created a structure. um, so we understood we need to make an experience such to increase emotional awareness, not just to increase productivity, right? So the idea was to create more increase emotional awareness through implementing intentions and based on suggestions, and then jam session, and then a growth report. So the solution was not that easy. The solution was not a Pomodoro timer, right? We did a user journey and user survey on hierarchy of engagement, growing engaged users, retaining users, self-perpetuating users. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm just going to show you like how a testing hypothesis information architecture looks like. So this was our community solution information architecture, IA. So we created a super fan structure for season members. We created different experiences all across the board. We created a community discussion network where there will be peer-to-peer horizontal mentorships, discussion about the product that you want to build, moderated forums, rituals and traditions that the community can take in part together. So this was the proposed user flow. You need to state a purpose, right? This is what I want to do today, and that will be reaction based. And then based on whatever data that we have about you, we'll suggest some activities, and then you can join a jam or join an ongoing jam, right? And there will be after jam icebreakers, and then obviously after a while we'll add organic responsibility, which is a badge based, which was a badge based thing, right? And then you can chart growth. And there were different community discourses like solution clubs, maker studio, collab parties, offline session, and challenges. So there are a lot of other things. Now, if I go into the jam anatomy itself, there was user introduction, there was jam categorization, jam activity, and then a lot of other things, right? And the idea was to harness the positive psychology of it, and like basically creating and segmenting different structures and understanding like what exactly is the problem, right? Why do you procrastinate, and how can you solve for it, in a sustainable manner, not just with a random Pomodoro timer or a productivity timer, to be honest. Yeah, so I'm not going to get into, there are a lot of other things, trust factors, IA guidelines for fostering trust. um, I'm not going to get into that, but the idea is to create something that works, And to be honest, this works like this particular thing worked like a charm, right? um, and believe it or not, there was no app, there was no web application, there was nothing. It was just a Slack community. Obviously we engineered around, then we moved to Discord, and then we created different reaction, different bots for Discords, and then we realized, okay, the product is a bot, not an app itself, right? So that's how you can actually solve for real world problems. So whenever you are creating a case study, this is just a tip, right? Don't make a cookie cutter portfolio. The main thing is, no one is going to like, whenever we get like as a product design manager or product hiring manager, when we get these portfolios where everything is just based on a template. We just, this is the user flow, this is the information architecture, these are the wireframes. 90% of the time we don't even look through it, right? That's the reality of it. And technically hiring managers are just going to spare like 5 to 10 seconds to look for each portfolio. If you cannot hook them with a particular interesting approach, it's not going to work. And if it's just another, the same old solution ki, okay, this is, I have a this is a there are a lot of these problem generators nowadays. If you just take one problem statement from them and you create a cookie cutter solution around it, maybe the visual looks good, you are never going to get hired as a product designer. I'm not going to say never. There might be some companies who will hire you, but you are not going to grow as a product designer. You need to understand the problems and identify the real solutions that will actually work. Okay, I'll go back to the case study thing. It was the same thing I just showed you. I'll finish it off by one more thing, just basically saying, adding value to the business makes you a better designer and makes your career more sustainable. And the final tip was basically, I've already said, you have to learn the basics of UIX, obviously. If you're going to be a product designer, you have to learn the basic ideas, the basic notions of UI UX. um, Obviously you need to have a portfolio, but it's not going to be a cookie cutter portfolio. You need to actually understand the problems and need to actually solve for it, not just create random solutions. And obviously you have to have some soft skills. You need to maybe create a website, create something like a passion project, right? um, Understanding and negotiating with hiring managers and a design team that you're going to join. So yeah, that was the end of it. And now if you have any questions.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Ronak. I think that was great. Yeah. Maybe we'll go on. We do have some questions in the chat box, and maybe I can just call out the names, and you can just share your questions. Also, if you haven't introduced yourself, please introduce yourself as well. And if possible, do switch on your cameras. So Joseph, I think you have a question. Is Joseph here? Okay. Never mind. I will ask the question on his behalf. So I think he asked, okay, is he? Yep. Isn't it a product manager's job to close the gap between the business goal and the user's problems? Where
Right.
should we draw the boundary between product manager's responsibility and product designer's responsibility?
That's an amazing question. Um, Now, to be honest, Joseph, there is no boundary. There is a obviously there is a boundary. There, in certain companies, you can be hired as a product manager and a product designer. These are two different roles, obviously. But whenever you're working on a particular project and you're owning up that product, right? When you work as a product owner, when in senior positions, sometimes you have to take on be the product manager and create a roadmap that will help both the product design team and the management team. But to answer your question in a more specific manner, yes, obviously, not every time you need to do that, but you need to understand the business goals and the product management goals as well, so you can create better solutions through designs.
Okay. Thanks. Joseph, do you have any further questions on that? Okay, I think he's here, but maybe he's unable to hear me. Okay, let's go on to the next question. It's by Adam. Adam, do you want to ask your question? Okay, maybe I'll just go ahead again. So his question is, how best would one flesh out business goals as a product designer?
Right. So as a product designer, you have to, like as a senior product designer, obviously if you're a junior product designer or just someone who just joined, you actually don't need to, understand the business goals. It'll be a deliverable that will be given to you by your senior product designer or product managers. But when you are in a senior role, what you need to do is basically work with different teams, right, different sections. So there is an engineering team, there is a UX research team, there is a product management team, and then there is design team, and obviously there is marketing and other stuffs as well. So the thing is, when you're creating a solution, the end goal is to create a solution that will bring business and basically mitigate the user problems that that the particular problems that man proposes, right? The idea is to have a collaboration between all these teams, so whatever that you create gets to that endpoint. And obviously, as you move on, and through the up the ladder and become a little more senior, what actually you will obviously gain a little more information and experience on data, a little bit of engineering sustainability and other stuff. So maybe we will cover that in a different module. Yeah.
Adam, any questions?
Maybe just a follow-up question. So in that case, like I understand the part about getting your user needs, but then in terms of business goals, like how do you derive business goals from business? Because business may say they want A, but then if you that can just be the explicit goal, but underlying that there may be an underlying goal that they may not be fleshing out to you. So how do you flesh out those kinds of business goals? Is there like a tool or a method that you are using to do so?
Uh, Adam, sorry, I can't hear you properly, but I think I get your question. I'll try to answer that. So yeah, there are obviously different tools for product management and product design, and obviously you need to go through data sheets and understand what is the trend, right? And basically where is the gap between the design and the management team, and basically solve for that. And when I say gap between the design and the management team, it's basically the gap between the design and the design goal or the user goal and the business goal, right? To give you an example, suppose if you are creating a landing page, right? This is just a very basic example. Creating a landing page, and you have like basic hotjar installed on that landing page, and you will understand like what is the heat map of that landing page, right? What is the funnel that you have, a marketing and business funnel, right? You want to basically take your user or your customer, whatever it is, through that landing page and subscribe to your newsletter, or maybe join your this particular seminar that will be giving, right? That is a funnel. A lot of people will drop off. uh, Now if you see the heat map and understand okay, these are the main problems here, and some of the problems might not just be about design. It can be a lot of things. It can be the speed of the site, which is an engineering problem. It can be the writing, which is a UX writing problem. It can be the way it's structured, which is basically a UX research problem. They might not understand the user completely. So between all these things, and obviously the idea is to create more, get more subscribers, or get more customers to the end point, right? If that is the symbol, if it consider that as a simple business goal, the idea is to understand and analyze and then create a second, maybe do a A/B testing, right? To understand okay, these were the problems in the first landing page. I will mitigate that problem in the second one, and maybe I can create a better user flow where there is a 10% 20% more conversion rate for this landing page. This is just a basic example. Obviously real life scenarios are much more complicated than this.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Adam, for your question. Okay, let's move on to Anne Marie. I think you have two questions, right? So do you want to just go ahead and ask your question?
Oh, do I ask both?
Are they linked?
Not really, I think.
So you can just go one by one. I think
Okay,
it's
sure.
yeah.
I think my first one was like for yeah, firstly, thanks for the presentation. I think my first one was for like one of the earlier parts, like because I think like you were talking about how one has to sort of consider both business needs and on top of just like considering the user, right? So I think I had a question about like how is the thinking process like when business needs come into conflict with user needs? Is there like some balancing that goes on, or do you like lean towards one or like the other, and like
Yeah.
at various points in the like journey? Yeah, just wondering.
So, um, and there's no proper answer to that. I'm being very honest. It depends. It completely
Mm,
depends on the particular scenario. Um, it depends on the business goal of the company, right? Um, so suppose I have a company X, and the
mm,
end goal is not to create profit. It's to understand the business and increase user base, right? Maybe in that scenario, if there is a clash between the user need versus a business need, right? Maybe the user need will take over, and it is possible that we basically send the business need maybe to a second page. They're not going to follow through with there if there's a direct clash. And believe me or not, they're generally in most of the cases there are always clashes. To give you an example, product managers, the idea of management is to basically create more sustainable yet profitable businesses through designs and whatever, like through the whole process. But when you come to design, obviously as a designer you would need to create a little more ethical, a little more structural thing that you think would help the users rather than not just the businesses, right? And most of the designers have this idea, "Okay, I need to work for the users only." That's absolutely true. But if you create only for the users, maybe the company will go bankrupt in 2 months, and then you won't have a job, and then you have the users to solve for. So yeah, there are certain things, and basically, whenever there is clash like that, you have to negotiate with your product manager and the team.
okay.
Do you want to ask your next question?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'll just ask my next one then.
yeah,
Oh,
just go
okay.
ahead.
My other question was like, I think you were mentioning about how one should also like work towards like sort of presenting solutions that will work when you come up with like your, whether it's your portfolio or the flows or
Right.
whatever. I think one question that came to mind was how does like one build solutioning skills in that sense? Like, is it through just experiencing more or observing or like reading more case studies, or just your perspective? Yeah.
Okay, I'll answer your question, but before that, I'll just take a second to explain a little interesting thing, right? So the thing is, whenever you create a portfolio or you're creating, I'll basically go with the portfolio example because that is more applicable here. So when you're creating a portfolio, what you try to create is a perfect solution. The thing is, perfect solutions don't exist in real life. When you go through a particular case study, it will seem like I had this problem statement, and when I create this app or website or whatever the particular thing is, this problem is completely gone. It is not. It is never the case. It's not going to be that. However, it is a step towards that solution, right? So whenever you are creating a solution that in real life, and you will see I haven't included that, but I wanted to maybe cover that bit as well. There are a lot of design philosophies and different frameworks, right? Like double diamond process, this that. It is a good framework to have, even for product management when you are a senior product designer and manager as well. This agile, scrum, kanban, there are a lot of these frameworks, right? The thing is, if you just think I will show and introduce 10 frameworks in my portfolio or in my case study, it is the design manager, they will see through it. The thing is, in real life, there is no design philosophy, there is no design structure. It is a non-linear process, right? So whenever you see go through a portfolio, it seems like design diamond, or this double diamond process is a linear process. You go back to this, go back to research, then again design, and then reiterate and create more solutions. The thing is, in real life, there'll be 10,000 other things. Maybe you create a solution and then engineering team says ki this is not going to work, scrap the whole thing. And the business owner will say ki this is not going to work, we need to implement maybe machine learning to it. So the thing is, it is great to have a framework, but when you're creating a solution, you need to understand what is feasible, what can be built, right? And what will actually now you might say, how would I understand this will actually help the user? Now when you're building a portfolio, you can only guess through the basic whatever small corpus of user interview that you're going to have. But in real life, you will create different beta structures, right, before launching it full on a full scale. You will do user testing, you do usability testing, and understand if this particular thing is working or not. If certain things are not working, we'll make the changes and launch it again. And it is generally a very long process.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rounak. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Okay, Siti, I think you have a few questions, so you can just ask them one by one.
Okay, hi Rounak. Thank you so much for the talk. And I think actually your background is quite interesting, whereby you also know about advertising and all that. Yeah. So I guess the first question that I have, right, is that how do I ask for business goals from my stakeholders? So yeah, I would like to have these business goals as a prompt for the ideation workshops. So like how we are used with, how might we statement, and then we have the ideation workshops, and then we come up with the app features. Then then I realized that as I'm doing my work, right, actually they are missing features, because I think that, by having this feature, it could generate revenue. So then when I ask my stakeholders, okay, what business goals do you have? They look back at me, what do you want business goals? Yeah, so I'm asking for, like in terms of how should it be formatted? Is there like a specific format, or what kind of words are you looking for when you ask for a business goal?
Yeah, that's a good question. So to answer that properly, it would have been really helpful if I had a proper case study for that. I think I will send something to Radhika, and Radhika can then forward it to you. You'll have a better understanding if you have the proper KPIs and OKRs, then have an understanding how this is formatted. But I will try to give you a small overview of how it works. So let's take an example. Suppose you are creating an app, right? Now the business goal doesn't need to be, it can be as simple as, maybe this, what we need to do for the first phase of this thing, for creating the MVP, we need to get 10,000 subscribers or 10,000 paid users or whatever it is, right? The business goal can be as simple as that, right? It is, obviously there are more nuances to it, but whenever you're creating a structure ideation, you can be as simple as, okay, we need to get to 10,000 subscribers in 6 months, 7 months, whatever the timeline is, right? Now what are the steps to it, right? Then you break it down. And when you do this kind of ideation, what you do is basically you understand a particular business goal and create and the problem statement, the user problem statement as well, and then you break it down into different chunks, like actionable pointers. Okay, maybe to reach that 10,000 goal, it is not just the design, right? Then we need to do marketing as well. Okay, how do we integrate design and marketing? Maybe we can create, maybe we can create a feature list and then market it in a way so that when the particular user comes to that funnel and use my app or use whatever the web app or the website that I'm creating, they can see the features, and maybe that will increase 2% of this, right? 2%, it will increase 2% of conversion rate. So that is maybe one solution. And you have to identify and analyze, okay, these are the 10 solution or 5 solutions or 6 solutions that I'm going to build and propose to the stakeholder and the business owners as well. And obviously not everything can be done by a designer, and that was one of my examples as well. That if you remember that car parking thing, like if you have a problem like a car park in an urban city, whatever it is, maybe be it Bali, Singapore, Bangalore, Delhi, whatever, New York, it is a huge problem. It is not just solvable, it is not just a user's problem or a user solution that will help us get through this particular problem. There is a logistical issue that also you need to address, right? There are certain engineering problems, there are engineering things that you need to understand. But however, the basic thing is to in a more concentrated manner to understand, okay, this maybe, I want to increase the users, I want to increase the retention rate. Maybe they are using the app but they are not staying within the app, right? Then you need to understand, okay, then my business goal right now, not the overall business goal, not the higher business goal. The business goal right now is to basically, maybe there is 5% retention rate, I want to increase it to 10% in this particular quarter. Then what are the things I need to do? And now what you do is you do heuristic study, right? You do heat maps, you analyze them, you understand where the users are dropping off, and then you solve for them. You create user surveys, you create data structures, and then you understand, okay, if they are dropping off from point A to point B, there might be some problems. Then you solve for it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that really helps, and looking forward to the case study.
Thank
Right.
you.
Okay, great.
Also,
So then, yeah, I will ask the next question. This one is actually based on the quotes that you had for your last slide, and that is how, I think the quote something goes along the line value add to the business, to something like that. Yeah. So how should how do you bring value to business as a product designer?
yeah.
The very, very big questions, maybe like rather than specific steps, but rather in terms of mindset, like how
Right.
do I frame my mindset
Right.
that will actually bring value to the business as a product designer?
Right. So this whole talk was about that. It's basically to make you understand ki whatever you do as a product designer or UI UX designer, um, it's to create more business impact and to basically bring in more business and thus add more value to the business as well. So whenever you are creating something, your core philosophy is about the problem solution, but as well as the business need. So suppose the idea is to increase the retention rate. You just shouldn't think about, okay, I just want to think about the users and don't care about the business goals at all. Obviously you need to keep that in mind. Now these things are very actionable. Now you don't these are not very abstract creative pointers that you need to go through. Suppose you need to increase the retention rate from 5% to 7%, and if you do that and bring in more users, and in that in turn create more value to the business, by that definition you've already created the impact that you wanted to create in as a product designer in the business, right? So that is an actionable step. That is the objective reality. So that's how basically you can bring more value to the thing. And obviously as you learn and grow and add more to the experience, you will figure out okay, maybe this is a solution that I can propose to the business owners or to the company stakeholders that can make it more efficient, or maybe bring in more value and money as well. But not every time the goal is about making money, but it is, however, is one of the main things, right?
Got it. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Okay, thanks, Siddhi. I think we have one last question in the chat, and then we will open it to the floor for a few minutes because we're almost reaching the end of the talk. At the same time, I've also just shared a link in the chat box for everyone to just fill a short feedback form about how this session was, because we want to know from you, and as well we want to like improve on how we're doing things, or want to know what else you're looking forward to as part of the We Design community. Okay, Abhinav, I think you have a question. Do you want to just share it? Abhinav, are you there? Okay, no worries. I am gonna. Oh, okay, you mentioned you've got the answer already. Okay, great. That's great. Okay, does anyone else have any other questions? Just opening up to the floor now. I think Jiho has a question. Would you like to ask a question? Okay, so Gio's asking if Rounak, you could suggest a good portfolio to look at. Gio, I hope I got your question right.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to go through some. I'll send some links. Radhika, if you can just forward it to Gio. But one more thing. Even if you find one of the best portfolios out there, right? Don't try to follow it. You can understand the framework, but don't try to follow it and try to copy it, because it is not the proper and the process that, or a sustainable process that you should. You need to create your own solutions. You can look for inspirations, but yeah. And the second question, I guess, is the full process of user scenario guesswork, or was it shadowing all day long as an observational survey? um so the thing is, it's generally 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I would say, it's based on empirical data and user surveys and whatever information that we get out of there. But there are certain times, there are obviously in a few cases where you need to make educated guesswork, I would say, based on all the the experiences that you have. Maybe there are some curated experiences like that. But yeah, most of the things that we have, like whatever design decisions that we take, are based on empirical solutions and evidences.
Okay, Gio, does that answer your question? Great. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, at the same time, I'm just gonna reshare my screen. I'm just gonna share this, that we are, I would like everyone to just fill up this form. I think I've sent everyone a personal link as well, just because we want to know what we design people can do for you. And at the same time, thanks a lot to Rounak for joining this session and giving a talk on product design and what surrounds it as well. I think this is not the end of it, in the sense where I think we will have series of talks as well. So we're just starting that out. So we've done one talk, an introduction on product design, and we will dive deeper into understanding product design on a deeper level, as well as other areas as well that affect product design. And Rounak will definitely be back, and we might have a surprise guest as well joining us for one of these other sessions. So do look out for that, and do join us and follow us on a Slack channel here as well. Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.